Okay. Taitriya Upanishad. Taitriya Upanishad belongs to the Taitriya school of Yajur Veda, and therefore the name Taitriya Upanishad. It is divided into 3 chapters and 32 sections. Starts with the Shikshavali, which contains 13 sections, and deals with Siksha, or the study of phonetics and pronunciation, which is an important part of Vedic studies. The second chapter is on Brahmananda Valli and is divided into 9 sections, which deals with various aspects of Brahman, the universal egg, or manifest Brahman, such as the course of evolution, matter, and life. Brahman as the source of creation as well. And the third chapter is named Bhrigu Valli, which deals with an inquiry of Brahman by sage Bhrigu in a conversation with his father Varun Dev. Varun Dev, if any of you are aware, is the vehicle for Vishnuji. And therefore, the Upanishad makes careful distinction between the terms pleasure and joy. Pleasure, which mainly comes from sense experience, is transitional and actually limited. Joy comes from being in harmony with the creative forces of the universe, with one's own destiny, and is permanent. One of the main reasons we can tell it apart from pleasure is that joy has no limitations. Now, this is an important distinction in mysticism, and in striking a passage, the Taitriya Upanishad builds on this idea and tries to give us some sense of magnitude of the joy that is our legacy, building up systematically in expansions of 100 and a comparison with limited experience that we have now to the inexpressible joy of unity with the Supreme. Anand, Paramanand, Anand, that's what we're talking about. Now, that alone would be an outstanding contribution, but the beauty about Taitriya Upanishad is the model of the human being as a self encased in 5 wrappings, like a Chinese puzzle kind of a thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 circles. Imagine there's 5 wrappings within the human soul. That's where it begins. So the 5 layers, right? From the Atma till the Sharir. So we're going to look into that. And that is the beauty of this Taitriya Upanishad. Basically, the first self we are generally aware of, and progressing inwards towards the sheets, meaning layers of vitality, pran, mind, intuition, buddhi, and finally, anand, which is joy. Along with the quantum leaps in joy are similar qualitative steps in awareness for those who push deeper through these layers of condensation, as it were. that cover of our real self. In short, basically, if we look at our own body, we have the soul inside, okay? From the soul, we have buddhi, man, chit, ahankar. Yeah, atma, buddhi, man, chit, ahankar. I'm saying this in this language in particularly for all the people who've joined us who are unaware with the other terminologies. So, જે પાંચ કવર્સ છે આપણા આત્માના એનો વિષય છે આખો તૈત્રીય ઉપનિષદમાં અને ત્યાંથી જ આવ્યું છે અને પછી શ્રીમદ ભગવદ્ ગીતામાં એનું એક્સપાન્શન છે. So, how is this to be done? Basically, the text which gives us one of the practical insights that startle us with the contemporary bearing, respect food, waste not food. અન્નને માન આપો, અન્નને વેસ્ટ નહીં કરો. આ જે વાક્ય છે અન્નનું, અન્ન દેવતાનું, એ તૈત્રીય ઉપનિષદમાંથી છે. વેરી વેરી ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ. એટલે ટાઈમ સમય પહેલાથી જ્યારથી આપણા વેદોનું ઉત્પન્ન થયું ત્યારથી આ મેસેજ આવ્યો છે. આપણે તો અત્યારે ફોકસ ચાલી રહ્યું છે કારણ કે અર્થના રિસોર્સિસ આટલા બધા લિમિટેડ થતા જઈ રહ્યા છે. હાવેવર આપણા વેદોમાં એ પહેલેથી આપણને એ શિક્ષા આપી રહ્યા છે કે અન્નને વેસ્ટ નહીં કરો, અન્નને માન આપો, અન્નને ભગવાન સમાન ગણો. આ આપણે ઉપનિષદના મેસેજીસ છે અને એ આ તૈત્રીય ઉપનિષદમાંથી આવે છે. So forgive me if I'm not very good with the explanation in Gujarati, but I will try and relate it so that my lovely ladies who are with us in this journey of knowledge and enlightenment can also benefit. Okay. Passages like this should give final proof that the religion of Upanishads is not world-denying. The layered models that develop in so many forms make us feel more respect for the things of this world. Food, for example, is life energy or prana condensed into matter. When we respect that energy on the physical level, we gain easier passage to the level beyond. Of course, this is even more true for our fellow creatures. Alienation from them blocks spiritual growth. Okay, so by realizing the unity from which each created thing has come and which it has sustained, we can live rightly in the world of change in order to ascend through it to eternal. એટલે સ્પિરિચ્યુઅલ ગ્રોથમાં આ બધા રિયલાઇઝેશન જેમ થતા જાય, આ બધું કે અન્નનું માન ને પૃથ્વી ઉપર જે કારણનો જે અન્નનું વેસ્ટેજ થઈ રહ્યું છે એ બધું જેમ આપણે ઓછા કરતા જાય, આપણું સ્પિરિચ્યુઅલ રિયલાઇઝેશન એમ વધતું જાય અને જેમ વધશે એમ આપણું પ્રોગ્રેસ હાયર એન્ડ હાયર થતું જશે. આ છે તૈત્રીય ઉપનિષદનો મેસેજ અને નોલેજ. ઇટ્સ વેરી બ્યુટિફુલ. પણ ફર્સ્ટ પાર્ટ શિક્ષાવલી છે તૈત્રીય ઉપનિષદની અને એમાં બધા મંત્રોસ છે. પણ હું મંત્રોસને લઈશ નહીં, હું ખાલી એમનું એક્સપ્લેનેશન આપીશ બ્રીફલી સો દેટ અવેરનેસ ક્રિએટ થાય. કારણ કે ઇફ વી ટ્રાય એન્ડ લર્ન ધ તૈત્રીય ઉપનિષદ in terms of sessions, then we'll be here for another 2 years. Literally, because it's so in depth and it's so beautiful. But I'll give you the gist of the Upanishad to my best ability. So here we go. This is just the beginning, the Samhiti, Varuni, and Yagniki. Now, the first part, Shiksha Valli, the first mantra. This mantra basically is talking about the tutor and the student. All this first part, Shiksha Valli, is the mantras for the benefit of both the teacher and the student. So all the prayers mentioned in this are applicable to both and all those listening. Now, the first one, the first mantra says, may Mitra be favorable to us, may Varun be favorable, may Aryaman be favorable, may Indra and Brahaspati be favorable to us, may Vishnu be favorable to us. Salutation to Brahman. Salutation, O Vayu. You are verily the visible Brahman. You alone I declare as the visible Brahman. I declare you as the controller. I declare you as the truth. May it protect me. May it protect the teacher. May it protect me. May it protect the teacher. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Okay, this was transliteration in English. Basically, Sam means calm, peaceful, kind, favorably disposed, or satisfied. The Vedic sacrifices are meant to propitiate the gods with offerings of food which they require and make them peaceful, calm, and favorably inclined towards the worshippers, so that having become gratified with the offerings they receive, they shower their blessings upon them and help them to achieve their desired goals. This we are talking about the Vedic sacrifices, yagnas. We discussed the yagnas earlier, and this is the yagna they're talking about. So this prayer is talking about the blessings that we receive by offering into the yagnas. It refers to the smooth and orderly progression of events commonly found in nature, such as the passing of time or movements of days and nights, seasons, planets, and the universal laws of nature. Vayu, as the mover of the mid-region, is invoked in this verse as the controller of the orderly flow of events. He is also invoked as Brahman because he is invisible, expansive, carrier of things such as sound, speech, and source of breath, which is the pran. Excuse me. Part 2. The second pratna talks about the study of this has a lot of significance in Vedic education. Now, whilst I'm explaining this, I would like you all to read on your screens, because these are the actual mantras transliterated. I did the first one, but I'm not going to read that because I've already put it on the screen. So I would like you to read that and understand what I'm saying. That is the mantra number 2. The study of these has a lot of significance in Vedic education because the success of a priest who participates in Vedic ceremonies depends upon his ability to pronounce the words in the chants correctly, for which he needs to know how to articulate the words, where to stress them, where to pause them, how to use the correct pitch, to create the right vibrations and produce the right combination of sounds and conditions of divinities to descend from the heaven and accept the offerings. We talked about this in our session in mantras as well, how important it is to pronounce correctly and also to say them in a particular fashion, the mantras. So this is what he's talking about in the second mantra of the Taitriya Upanishad, SHIKSHAVALI. Now, this is the third mantra. Please kindly read it. It is quite interesting. He's talking about the teacher wished for the success of everyone in the group. He did so because Vedic society valued correct pronunciation of hymns chanted during the sacrifices. The reputation of a teacher depended very much upon the success of his students. Since this was a class about the pronunciation, the teacher rightly prayed for the success of both. This section is about samhitas or combinations, the connections that exist between the individual objects and what connects them. Right. It says, the reputation of a teacher depended very much upon the success of his students. Okay, I'm hoping all of you can at least, are quite well versed with the Vedic prayers that we have now. And I think, we'll have one session one day and get everybody to, learn or recite them in turns. That will be rather interesting. Okay. Now, with regard to the shining objects, fire is the prior form. The sun is the later form. The water is their meeting place. Lightning is their connector. This is with regards to the heavenly lights. In reference to the knowledge, the teacher is the prior form. Student is the later form. Knowledge is their meeting place. The teaching is the connector between the teacher, the student, and the knowledge. How beautiful, how poetic. It's also talking about regard to progeny. The mother is the prior form, the father the later form. The progeny is their meeting place. The act of procreation is the connector. In regards to the body, the lower jaw is the prior form. The upper jaw is the later form. Speech is the meeting place. Tongue is the connector. Then we have, now these are great combinations. Whoever knows these combinations is united with cattle, progeny, the splendor of Brahman, food, and heavenly world. So that's the third mantra. This is just, I'm not too sure if all of you remember this from our first class that we did, but it's been quite a while. So I'm just touching on the basics, and then we'll continue from where we stopped. The fourth mantra is talking about Shrutham Shravanam. Shrutham means what is heard, usually with regards to the hymns of the Vedas, the mantras of the Vedas. This prayer seeking protection against loss of that knowledge through memory lapse. So by saying this prayer, basically you're definitely going to remember all the mantras of this Upanishad. Then there's also, thereafter, it's also the goddess of fortune. Now, this prayer is to Lord Indra, seeking his help in obtaining favors from Sri Mahalakshmi, the goddess of prosperity. It is a continuation of the previous verse. The seeker extols the goddess as the carrier, multiplier, and accomplisher of all good things in life. She does it not only for herself, but for her devotees also at all times. Having made that observation, the seeker then asks Indra, Lord Indra, to help him in getting her favors. A teacher's prosperity depends upon having more students. Therefore, he is seeking the help of Indra to propitiate the goddess Lakshmi or Mahalakshmi and obtain wealth in the form of cattle, wool, clothes, food, drink, and students. Swaha means personally. Swaha, the word swaha. It means swa stands for personally and aha, I am. So personally me, kind of, that's what it means. A word uttered for emphasis with each offering dropped or poured into the yagna. I'm sure all of you have some kind of experience of a yagna, especially those who are married. They've definitely done a yagna if you've married the Indian way and done a yagna vidhi, whereby you're asked to put some offerings into the fire, uttering the word swaha. So that's what it's about. Then, so it's also saying, may I become famous among people. Swaha. And it goes on, a board of light and the flows of the slopes and mountains. However, the Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, these are the three mystic utterances. Besides them, there is a fourth one, which is Maha. It is made known by the son of Mahachamas, that is Brahman, that is the self, its limbs are other gods. Now, Bhur is this world, Bhuva is the mid region, and Swaha is the world above. Maha is the sun. By the sun indeed, all worlds become great. Now, this is pretty interesting because we've come back to this after done the session on loks. We are aware of all the loks that we talked about, the 14 loks. And in that, we addressed this Bhur, Maha, Swarglok, etc. So I'm sure you're finding it pretty easy by now. The Vyaharitis are the mystic utterances used in daily prayers by the Vedic householders while invoking the divinities. This, in brief, is the structure of the universe in Vedic cosmology. The earth, the mid-world, the higher world of heavens, and the great world of the immortals. This division is with regard to the Adilok. Okay, so That's okay. This is the prayer for that. Okay, what I just talked about. Bhurbhuva Swaha. Now, there is a very in-depth section on the Gayatri Mantra. And the Gayatri Mantra, when you actually study it in depth, you refer it back to this very Upanishad, Taitriya Upanishad. The origin is the Vedas, but we know that Upanishad is the Ved itself in some form. Not some form, the whole of the Upanishad is Ved, but which part of the Ved, we saw that, we've discussed that. Therefore, for the Gayatri Mantra, this section of the prayer is very, very important because this is the origination of the Gayatri Mantra expansion. Bhur is this fire. Bhuva is the air. Suva is the sun. And Maha is the moon. By the moon, indeed, all the shining objects become great. Before we had by the sun, indeed, all the shining objects become great. Now we have the moon. So the resonance of the luminaries is quite important in this. Bhu verily is the Rigved hymn. Bhuva is the Sama. Suva is the Yajur Veda. Maha is Brahman. By the Brahman, all the Vedas become great. The interpretation of the four worlds is with regards to Adi Vidya, knowledge. Then we have the Bhur. Verily is the incoming breath. Bhuva is the downward breath. Suva is the diffused breath. Maha is the food. By food, indeed, all the breaths become great. The interpretation of the four worlds with regards to the body, Adhyatma. First we had the Adividya, now we have the Adhyatma. Then we have the verily are the four of the four. Four explanations of the four utterances. He who knows them, he knows Brahman. To him all gods bring great offerings. Now we go to the sixth slok. I'm again going to emphasize, please kindly read the slide. The slide is a direct interpretation of the Sanskrit mantra. Okay, now this section, this mantra is talking about meditating upon the Brahman. We're still in the first section. I'm just reminding you, we're talking about the Guru and Shishya. These are the mantras benefiting both and the listeners. Okay, this is a conversation, this is a dialogue between Rishi Bhrigu and Varun Dev. And this is where we are in the first section. Okay, right. Okay, now this space that is inside the heart, in that is the person who is enveloped by mind, immortal and golden hued, between the two palates, which hangs down like a cow from outside. The roots of the hair divides the head into two. That is the source of Indra. the departing Purush, saying Bhur rests in fire, saying Bhuva rests in air. These are basically the prayers. I mean, I gather that this must be pretty hard, but just try and understand the gist of it, because in order to understand it completely, we can take one word per session, and you know, if we did that, or one mantra per session, we can be here for 3 years, actually, because I've had this conversation with bona fide spiritual master who is very, very prominent in Upanishads. And we discussed this, and he told me that he used to do classes ages ago. And for Taitriya Upanishad, it took him 3 years, but one mantra per session of the class per week. So we are in the same kind of sync. So if we did all that, then we'd have to be here for a long period of time, and I think I'll lose half of you. But this is just for your information, okay? And please read this and enjoy, because it is pretty, you know, poetic as well. So, right. Saying Suva, he rests in the sun. Saying Maha, he rests in Brahman, attains self-rule, attains the lordship of the mind, attains the lordship of the speech, lordship of the sight, lordship of hearing, lordship of wisdom. Thereafter, he becomes Brahman, whose body is the space, whose nature is the truth, in whom the breaths come to rest, whose mind is blissful, and he flourishes with peace and immortality. O Prachini Brahman, I meditate upon you. That is the 6th mantra. The 7th mantra, okay, is talking about Adi Bhuta, that is the physical and the material universe consisting of all the objects that are made up of the 5 elements. Adhyatma constitutes one physical self or the mind and body. The last stance is, you know, the meaning is that by these 5 aggregates, the Panch Mahabhut, the body of the 5-fold being, is filled up. Basically, this body is made of Panch Mahabhut. So that's quite frequently used in our scriptures. Panch Mahabhut Shariram. Okay. Mantra 8. This verse explains both the ritual and the spiritual significance of Om. Om is chanted in the beginning of various types of recitations and ritual chanting. Om is chanted to indicate the beginning of the rituals as well as compliance. Excuse me. Om is also chanted to know the self and realize Brahman. This month, this shlok is all about Om. Om is Brahman. Om is all this. This world, this word invokes obedience. Om, we recite, they recite. Uttering Om, they sing the samans. Uttering Om, they recite scriptures. Uttering Om, the Priest responds with praise, uttering Om. The Brahman priest indicates approval, uttering Om. The Agnihotri priest gives permission. Om, when he was about to begin the recitation of the Vedas. May I attain Brahman? Om. So this mantra is all about Om. We move on to the next mantra. Now this mantra is quite interesting, and it's about Swadhyay. Swadhyay, meaning learning the Vedas by self-effort through recitation, remembrance, and contemplation. Rutam means the order and regularity of the world, or the orderly flow of time and events as willed by God Himself. Rutam is maintained by God by enforcing divine laws through duty. It is possible only when everyone from the highest to the lowest in the hierarchy of creation perform their obligatory duties selflessly. Now, this as we study the Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 3 is completely based on this. And there's a huge emphasis on this, when Krishna tells Arjuna to perform his duty completely selflessly. Duty, meaning dharma, and the order go hand in hand, and it has to be upheld in every aspect of life by a person who is bound to his dharma by means of self-study and teaching. Other aspects of dharma like truth, austerity, sacrifices, procreation, raising a family should also be practiced with the help of these two, self-study and teaching. Self-study increases one's own knowledge and awareness of dharma. Teaching increases the knowledge and awareness of others. When everyone in the society has right knowledge, divine laws flourish, and the order and regularity of the world is ensured. This is the essence of this verse. And this is the truth, complete truth. This is an austerity in itself. Nothing else is required to uphold dharma other than self-study, teaching, and truth. It's very beautiful, this shlok. Then we move on to the 10th prayer. Now, according to some, is talking about the tree. Now, the tree is Trisanku, which is on knowledge and wisdom. When a person achieves liberation, when a person achieves liberation, he not only liberates himself, but also helps his ancestors immensely by uplifting them to the immortal world by his very achievement. I'm sure all of you are aware, or those of you are not aware, at least the elder generation is completely aware of this. It's basically talking about एक व्यक्ति आध्यात्मिक लेवल ऊपर जाए અને જો હાઈ સ્કેલ્સ અટેન કરે તો આખા કુટુંબને તારી જાય છે. એક વ્યક્તિ તરે છે તો આખા કુટુંબને તારી જાય છે. This is applicable. This is actually an extract that's been interpreted in Gujarati, and this is exactly from this Taitriya Upanishad, this prayer number 10. So, Trisanku declared in this verse, he helped his ancestors to move to the higher world. Urdhvam is interpreted by some as the source. And the reference is head or the mind, which constitute the uppermost part of the body, and that is the clear sign of the one whose glory rises like the mountain, the peak of the mountain. So that's shlok number, prayer number 10. Now, this shlok is actually a farewell advice to the students. After teaching the Veds, in the end, the teacher instructs the pupil, always speak the truth, perform your duty, do not neglect the self-study of the Veds. After giving the gift desired by the teacher, do not break the chain of your next generation, your progeny. Do not neglect the truth. Do not neglect your duty. Do not neglect your health. And do not neglect your material well-being. Most importantly, do not neglect the self-study and the teaching of the Veds. This is the prayer by the for the appropriate students by the tutor. So there's also, do not neglect your duties to gods and ancestors. And may your mother be honored as a goddess by you. May your father be honored as a god by you. May your teacher be honored as a god by you. And may your guest be honored as a god by you. Whatever actions you have, they are free from egoism. They should be practiced and not others. Whatever good conduct you find among us teachers, that alone should be practiced, not others. Basically, do not imitate teachers who practice wrong actions, or what we call speaking untruth, being unjust, performing other actions which are not to be performed by anybody. And that's all very possible in this Kali Yuga anyway. However, this advice is to the students from this Upanishad. Anav means egoism or acting like a particle anu, distinct from God. Basically, we ourselves, we are a small fragment of God Almighty. That's why we are referred, our soul is referred to as Anu, a small particle. Anu Atma. Shri Krishna ki Anu Atma hai hum. It's a verse that I wrote years ago in dedication of a great teacher. I wrote some poetry, and this is where I use this word. Anyway, so Actions arising out of egoism should be discarded since they lead to karmic consequences and bondage. Actions should be performed as an offering. A teacher should be a role model, but the teacher himself is suggesting here that the students should not follow their teachers blindly. This is very, very important. In this period, this time that we are in, sometimes we consider our certain people as our teachers. However, their conduct, is sometimes not appropriate. However, when that happens, people lose faith. But one should not lose faith because anybody, any mankind on this earth, everybody is full of flaws in this age of Kali Yuga. Some flaw or the other, some more, some less. The teachers do have certain qualities, and we should focus on those qualities. And we should use our own distinction and ignore the actions of a teacher that are immoral or not right. So rather than following the teacher blindly and doing, taking the same pathway, they should follow only the conduct of the teachers which is considered good. Sucharita, meaning good character. Those Brahmins among us who are praiseworthy, now is talking about the Brahmins, who among us, these are the Brahmins who perform sacrifices or perform ceremonies, etc. Those Brahmins among us who are praiseworthy, their fatigue should be removed by offering them a seat. What is given should be given with sincerity and not to be given with insincerity. Given plentifully, given with modesty, given with obedience, given with kindness. Now, if there is any doubt with regard to the duties, or if there is any doubt with regard to the profession, then you should conduct yourself in such a manner as those Brahmins who are competent to occupy the seat of a judge. This is very important advice to the students who are going to be carrying on the profession of a Brahmin. Okay. Those Brahmins who can discern the right from the wrong, who are not cruel, who are interested in performing actions for the sake of dharma, and would behave in such situations. So one should follow only those Brahmins, not the ones who go against these norms. Now, this is the command to perform actions for the sake of dharma. This is the teaching. This is the secret teaching of the Vedas. And this is the instruction. This alone should be followed. Yukta yukta means right and wrong, or what is appropriate and inappropriate, and used in reference to discerning knowledge, vichakshan and gnana. This is a very important quality for any person who performs the functions of a judge. In this day and age, we hardly have such judges, but there are some who do possess these qualities. Samarsin means to be qualified to sit upon the seat of a judge to deliver a judgment. The suggestion given in this verse to the younger students is if they have to judge any actions or speak against anyone who has been accused of doing wrong, they have to follow the best practices followed by wise people in society and uphold the values that they uphold. Dharma. It's very important to do that. And yet, not be biased no matter who it is. So this advice is on judgment. Now, the final prayer is basically, may Mitra be favorable to us, may Varun be favorable, may Aryaman be favorable, may Indra, Brahaspati, and Vishnu be favorable to us. Salutation to Brahman, salutations of Vayu. You are the visible Brahman. You alone I declare as the visible Brahman. I declare you as the truth, and may this truth protect me. May it protect the teacher. May it protect me. May it protect the teacher. May it protect the students. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So now that is the first part of the Taitriya Upanishad. And we have addressed all the prayers. Now what we're going into is Brahmananda Valli, Brahman and creation. And the prayer we say in the beginning, Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahi Tejasvina Aditamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This prayer is actually from Taitriya Upanishad, the second part, Brahmananda Valli. And it is beautiful. It starts off with this. However, I think the first prayers, I think we've covered that, and that I think that was quite intense. So this section is going into beautiful, the punch, the 5 sheets that we talked about, and it's absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to leave this for our next session. Therefore, I'm going to stop sharing this, and we will move straight to questions. Okay.
હે અર્જુન, જ્યારે જ્યારે પરમ ધર્મ પરમાત્મા માટે હૃદય ગ્લાનિથી ભરાઈ જાય છે, જ્યારે અધર્મના અતિરેકનો પાર પમાતો નથી, ત્યારે હું અવતાર લઉં છું. આવી જ ગ્લાનિ મનુને થઈ હતી. પરિત્રાણાય સાધૂનાં વિનાશાય જગત્કૃતાં.
Nothing. You went on to the next slok. First, let's talk about chapter 4, verse 7. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmana shrujamyaham. Whenever there is a decline in righteousness and an increase in unrighteousness, O Arjun, at that time I manifest myself on earth. In this shlok, this is very, very important shlok for the Janmashtami that's coming up. Dharma is verily prescribed. They are conducive to our spiritual growth and progress. The reverse of this is adharma, which is unrighteousness. When unrighteousness prevails, the creator and the administrator of the world intervenes by descending and re-establishing dharma. Such a dissension of God is called an avatar. Okay, we just talked about it a few minutes ago. The word avatar has been adopted from the Sanskrit into English, okay, and is commonly used for people's images on the media screen. In this text, we are using it in its original Sanskrit connotation to refer to the divine descension of God Almighty. 24 such dissensions have been listed in Srimad Bhagavatam. We talked about the 24 avatars in our session on avatars as well. However, the Vedic scriptures state that there are innumerable dissensions of God. Nobody can count the infinite avatars of God since the beginning of eternity. These avatars are classified in 4 categories. Now we're going to look at this shlok in detail, because this is one of the most important shloks to understand Sri Krishna. Avesh avatar, okay? When God manifests his special powers in an individual soul and acts through him. Sage Narad is an example of Avesh avatar. The other example of Avesh avatar is Buddha, Bhagwan Buddha. Same avatar, okay? Then we have Prabhava avatar. These are the descension of God in a personal form, where he displays some of his divine powers. And the Prabhava avatars are also of 2 kinds, where God reveals himself only for a few moments, completes his work, and departs. Excuse me. Hans avatar is an example of this, where God manifested before the Kumars, the 4 Kumars, answered their questions and left. Where the avatar remains on earth for many, many years, Vedvyas, who wrote the 18 Puranas and the Mahabharata and divided the Veds into 4 parts, is an example of such an avatar. Then we have Vaibhava avatar. When God descends in his divine form and manifests more of his divine powers. And the examples of those that Vaibhava avatar is Matsya avatar, Kurma avatar, Vara avatar. These are the examples of Vaibhava avatar. The final one, the classification is Paravastha avatar. Okay? When God manifests all his divine powers in his personal divine form. This is beautiful because this avatar applies to Sri Krishna, Sri Ram, and Narsingh avatar. They are all Paravastha avatar. The classification does not imply that any one avatar is bigger than the other. Vedvyasji, who is himself an avatar, clearly states this. Sarve Purna. I won't read the whole shlok, but it's from the Padma Puran. All the descensions, all the avatars of God are replete with all divine powers. They're all perfect and complete for that particular avatar. Therefore, we should not differentiate one avatar as bigger and another avatar as smaller. However, in each avatar he manifested his powers based on the objectives he wished to accomplish during that particular avatar. The remaining powers reside latently within the avatar. Therefore, these classifications were created. See, we were talking about this just a while ago, and it's come up in this shlok. So, can we go to the next shlok, Jeshu?
हे अर्जुन, साधुनाम परित्राणाय પરમ સાધ્ય એકમાત્ર પરમાત્મા જ છે, જેને સાધવાથી કોઈ પણ સાધના બાકી રહી જતી નથી. તે સાધ્યમાં પ્રવેશ અપાવનાર વિવેક, વૈરાગ્ય, શમ, દમ વગેરે દૈવી સંપત્તિને નિર્વિઘ્ન પ્રવાહિત કરવા માટે તથા દુષ્કૃતામ, જેનાથી દૂષિત કાર્ય આકાર લે છે, તે કામ, ક્રોધ, રાગ, દ્વેષ વગેરે વિજાતીય પ્રવૃત્તિઓને જડ મૂળથી નષ્ટ કરવા માટે તથા ધર્મને સારી પેઠે સ્થિર કરવા માટે હું દરેક યુગમાં પ્રગટ થાઉં છું. યુગનો અર્થ સતયુગ, ત્રેતા કે દ્વાપર યુગ એ નથી. યુગ ધર્મોનો ઉતાર ચઢાવ મનુષ્યના સ્વભાવ પર છે. યુગ ધર્મ હંમેશા રહે છે.
To protect the righteous, to annihilate the wicked, and to re-establish the principles of dharma, I appear on this earth age after age. Having stated in the last verse that God descends in the world, he now states the three reasons for doing so: to annihilate the wicked, to protect the pious, and to establish dharma, or to re-establish dharma. However, if we closely study these 3 points, none of the 3 reasons seem very convincing. To protect the righteous, God is seated in the hearts of his devotees and always protects them from within. So there is no need to take an avatar for this purpose, right? To annihilate the wicked, God is all-powerful and can kill the wicked simply by wishing it. Why should he have to take an avatar to accomplish this? To establish dharma. Dharma is eternally described in the Vedas. God can re-establish it through a saint. Why does he need to descend himself in his personal form? These are questions that we need to think about, what Arjuna is thinking. How then do we make sense of the reasons that have been stated in this verse? Let's look a little deeper to grasp the import of what Sri Krishna is stating. The biggest dharma that the soul can engage in is devotion to God. That is what God strengthens by taking an avatar. When God descends in this world, he reveals his divine forms, names, virtues, pastimes, abodes, and associates. This provides the soul with an easy basis for devotion. Since the mind needs a form to focus upon and to connect with, the formless aspect of God is very difficult to worship in the devotion aspect. On the other hand, devotion to the personal form of God is very easy for people to comprehend, simple to perform, and sweet to engage in. Since the descension of Lord Sri Krishna 5,000 years ago, billions of souls have made his divine leelas, or the pastimes as we call it, as the basis of their devotion, and purified their minds with ease and joy. Similarly, the Ramayana has provided the souls with a popular basis for devotion for innumerable centuries. You know, when, as we know, the TV showing Ramayana, when it first began airing on Indian national television, all the streets of India would be empty. And that applied to a lot of other countries as well. The pastimes of Lord Ram held such fascination for people that they would be glued to their television sets to see the Leelas on the screen. This reveals how Lord Ram's descension provided the basis for devotion to billions of souls in the history of the Ramayana. In his descension period, in his avatar, Sri Ramchandraji helped only one, Ahalya, Sage Gautam's wife, when Lord Ram released her from the body of a stone. However, since then, by chanting the divine name Ram, billions of souls, the fallen souls, have elevated themselves. So, a deeper understanding of this verse is to establish dharma. God descends to establish the dharma of devotion by providing the souls with his names, forms, pastimes, virtues, abodes, and associates. With the help of this, they may engage in bhakti and purify their minds. To kill the wicked, along with God, to help facilitate his divine pastimes, some liberated saints descend and pretend to be miscreants. For example, Ravan and Kumkaran were Jay and Vijay, who descended from the divine abode of God. They pretended to be demons and opposed and fought with Ram. They could not have been killed by anyone else since they were divine personalities. So God slayed such demons as part of his Leelas, and having killed them, he sent them to his divine abode, since that was where they came from in the first place, and to protect the righteous. Many souls have sufficiently elevated in their sadhana, spiritual practice, to qualify to meet God face to face. When Sri Krishna descended in the world, these eligible souls got their first opportunity to participate in God's divine pastimes. For example, some gopis, cowherds of the women of Vrindavan, where Sri Krishna manifested his pastimes, were liberated souls who had descended from the divine abode to assist in Sri Krishna's Leelas. Other gopis were materially bound souls who got their first chance to meet and serve Sri Krishna, the Almighty God, and participate in his Leelas. So when Sri Krishna descended in the world, such qualified souls got the opportunity to perfect their devotion by directly participating in the pastimes of the Almighty. This is a deeper meaning of the verse. However, it is not wrong if someone wishes to cognize the verse more literally or metaphorically. But it's a beautiful verse. Okay, Shlok 9.
Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vedhi tattvataha tyaktva devam punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna.
અર્જુન, મારો તે જન્મ અર્થાત ગ્લાની સાથે સ્વરૂપની રચના તથા મારું કર્મ અર્થાત દુષ્કૃત્યોના કારણોના વિનાશ, સાધ્ય વસ્તુને અપાવનારી ક્ષમતાઓનો નિર્દોષ સંચાર, ધર્મની સ્થિરતા, આ કર્મ અને જન્મ દિવ્ય અર્થાત અલૌકિક છે, લૌકિક નથી. આ ચર્મચક્ષુઓ વડે જોઈ શકાતા નથી, મન બુદ્ધિથી તેને માપી શકાતા નથી. તે આટલા ગુણ છે તો તેમને જુએ છે કોણ? કેવળ યો વેત્તિ તત્વતઃ, કેવળ તત્વદર્શી જ મારા આ જન્મ અને કર્મને જોઈ શકે છે અને મારો સાક્ષાત્કાર કરીને તે આ પુનર્જન્મને પ્રાપ્ત થતો નથી, પરંતુ મને પ્રાપ્ત થાય છે.
Those who understand the divine nature of my birth and activities, O Arjun, upon leaving the body, do not have to take birth again, but come to my eternal abode. Golok, Vaikunth, we talked about, and Saketwan, or whatever the looks. Now, understand this verse in the light of the previous one. Our mind gets cleansed by engaging it in the devotional remembrance of God. This devotion can either be towards the formless aspect of God or towards his personal form, Sakar Brahma, Nirakar Brahma. Okay, that's quite, it'll be throughout this Bhagavad Gita. Devotion towards the formless is intangible. To find nothing to focus upon or feel connected with during such devotional meditation. Devotion to the personal form of God is tangible and simple. Like, the seva that we have at home. That is, it's easier because you see the Swarup in front of you. Such devotion requires divine sentiments towards the personality of God. For people to engage in devotion to Sri Krishna, they must develop divine feeling towards his names, forms, virtues, pastimes, abode, and associates. For example, people purify their minds by worshipping stone deities because they harbor the divine sentiment that God resides in these deities. It is these sentiments that purify the devotee's mind. God resides neither in wood nor in stone, but in a devotional heart. Therefore, worship the deity with loving sentiments. Now, this verse was from Manusmriti, okay, and he advises on the similar principle. Therefore, if we wish to engage in devotion towards Lord Krishna, we must learn to harbor divine sentiments towards his leelas. The commentators who give interpretation to the Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, they do grave injustice by destroying the basis of people's faith and devotion towards Sri Krishna sometimes. In this verse, Sri Krishna has emphasized the need for divine sentiments towards his pastimes, his leelas, for enhancing our devotion. To develop such divine feelings, we must understand the difference between God's actions and ours. We materially bound souls have not yet attained divine bliss. Hence, the longing of our soul is not yet fulfilled. Our actions are motivated by self-interest and the desire for personal fulfillment. However, God's actions have no personal motive because he is perfectly satiated by infinite bliss of his own personality. He does not need to achieve further personal bliss by performing actions. Therefore, whatever he does is for the welfare of the materially conditioned souls. Such divine actions that God performs are termed as leelas, while the actions we perform are called work. Similarly, many people misuse this terminology. They do something, they say, "A to leela hai," or some, they use it for some guru or whatever, any leela, this, that, whatever. However, there is a fine distinction between that. Leelas are actions performed by God, okay? And actions performed by humans is called work. Similarly, God's birth is also divine, unlike ours. It does not take place from a mother's womb. This is the most important distinction. The all blissful God has no requirement to hang upside down in a mother's womb. The Srimad Bhagavatam states, when Sri Krishna manifested upon birth before Vasudeva and Devaki, he was in the four-armed Vishnu form. This full-sized form could definitely not have resided in Devaki's womb, right? So, however, to create in her the feeling that he was there by his Yog Maya power, he simply kept expanding Devaki's womb. Finally, he manifested from the outside, revealing that he had never been inside her. This is the biggest difference and very important slok of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th chapter, 3.8. As the moon manifests in his full glory in the night sky, similarly, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna manifested before Devaki and Vasudeva. This is the divine nature of God's birth. If we can develop faith in the form of divinity for his pastimes and birth, then we will be able to easily engage in devotion to his personal form and attain the supreme destination. Right. I think we will continue chapter 4, Shlok 10 in our next session. And I'm just going to bring in the slide again so that we can say the final prayer. If anybody wants to discuss the shlok, we can do that next time. So we're going to end with the Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.